today's video we're going to take a look at how we can create our first database and table in Node-RED. Here you can see a simple flow where we've got 3 inject nodes, 1 SQLite node and a debug node. But before I go into this, I want to explain a little bit about the database. So I'm going to use this Excel file to explain it. So we call the database, in my case, john.db, and we've got one table we're going to create, and that's called Aquarium. Now within the table we've got 4 columns we're going to create. The first one is ID, then we've got date, another one called time, and another one called display. You can call these whatever you like. Now in the ID you'll see this will be an automatically generated input. Then in the date we're going to store a string which will be a text format. In time the same thing, a text format, but in the display we're going to create a float, or in SQLite it's called a reel. There's nothing stopping you within this john.db file having more tables if you wish, or even adding more columns. So I may add in future into here sun and room and record the temperature statement for each one of those sensors. This is just showing you what you can do with a database. So to get this SQLite node, you'll need to go to Manage Palettes, Install, and if you type in here SQLite, and then when you scroll down you'll see there's a number of different ones you can do, but this is the one we need. So you will click here Install and click OK, go through the process. So I've already got it, and then when you scroll down all the nodes you will see it here under Storage SQLite. So in the flow let's take a look at the SQLite node. Here you'll see I've already got it set up because this has actually been used once, but to create it you click here and put the path to where your file is going to be stored on your Raspberry Pi and the name you want to give it. So that's this, and then mode we need read, write and create. You could, once you've created one, have this as a read only or read and write. So I'm going to click OK, OK and deploy. So that's all we need to do with the SQLite node. So let's take a look at this create database table use once inject node. You'll see here the message payload is timestamp and the message topic is this line here. I'll just bring up a notepad so you can see the whole line. So the first thing we're doing is create a table called Aquarium. Then inside all of this we're going to have an ID which is an integer and it's a primary key and it's auto increment. Then we have comma date, which if you remember rightly is one of the column names. Now this is a text format and not null, so it has to have something put into it. We then have time, which again is text and again is not null. Then we have display, which is real, so we can put floating points into it and not null. So that is what we put here. Then we can click done. Now if I actually press this here, it should come up with an error message. Now here you'll see it's come up with an error message saying table Aquarium already exists. But when you create it for the first time, you'll see it comes up with a bit of different stuff saying it's done it, and then it will say empty. Unfortunately I can't show this because I've already done this within the program. So this next node here, this is what we would do if we wanted to inject information into that database. So here you can see the payload is timestamp, the topic is insert into Aquarium, and in the columns, in the date time and display, values, and here I'm just giving some fake data. So it's 23 of the 8th, 23, 17 hours, 35, 32, and a value of 26.5. So if I click done here, then if we actually do this here now, you'll see here it's actually inserted it, so it's done it and it comes up with empty. I'm not quite sure why it comes up with empty, but it does. The next node is this one here. So if we go into this one, and what I'm doing here, the message payload is timestamp again. So here in the message topic, I put an SQLite statement in, which is select star from Aquarium. The star means select all. And then if I deploy this, and if I bring this up, here you can see, because I've got this already set up and running, we've got a lot of information already coming through. So there's, here you can see that message was sent in by this node. And then if we come down here, you'll see it's a different format, and I'll explain that in a minute, because one of the things is I want to be able to use this where the data coming through is from the actual sensors. So at the moment I haven't worked out how to do all the formatting of the strings or the array so I can use it into the graph node. But as I say, the main thing for me is setting this up and testing for different things. So what I have got here is in my Raspberry Pi, and if I go into Thonny, just bear with me a second, I've created a simple Python script. Now, previously my Aquarium control was set up using mainly Python and just the Node-RED for the GUI interface. So in this script, I import a couple of different libraries I'm going to need, and then I have to tell it which sensor I want to use. So this is the sensor on my display tank, and there's a couple of lines of code which I'm not going to go into at the moment because that really is another topic. But basically it goes and grabs the information from the folder and then it brings back the values, so it will display it in degrees C. So in the past I've used these Python files to create the database if they don't exist. Now I've commented out here because I've actually now got Node-RED doing that bit. Then there's certain bits of data I need to be able to pull this all together. But again, here you can see I have to create a connection to SQLite into this database called john.db. I then have to create a cursor, then an execution, and all I'm doing here, insert into Aquarium, and again you've seen this before, date, time and display, but here the values are coming from certain parts of this here. So display is coming from the read temp. Then this file here finishes with con.commit and then con.close. So that disconnects it from that database. Then here I've just got a simple one which runs, and this pulls all the data so far, and here you can see, so here you can see where the indent numbers or ID comes in. Now we're going to use that later on once I start doing the graphing within Node-RED. Now another thing, the way I've done this is I actually use what's called a Crontab to schedule this program running. So if I go into that here, and at the moment I've turned it off, but here you can see I've actually got this commented out so it's not doing it. So if I delete this now, basically every 5 minutes the Raspberry Pi will run this script. Now eventually this will probably get changed to once an hour, and then all I need to do then is when I pull this data within the Node-RED into the graph, I need 168 readings to have a weak display of the data from that Python program. So I'll just save this, so Control S, Control X, and now that will run this script for me every 5 minutes. So I'm hoping this video helps you create your own database within Node-RED and learn how to get some data into it. Anyway, again, thank you for watching. If you've got any suggestions, feel free to comment or send messages to me privately and I will respond. So thanks again. Bye now.